somebody's watching. And they're watching you, and they're going to see if what you did yesterday is the same thing as you did today. Are you the same person that you say you're going to be? Are you the same person that carries out what you say you're going to do? Most recently, this was brought to my attention. I was reading about the football player for the Cleveland Browns. He's the quarterback, and he's the captain of the team now. His name is Baker Mayfield. So Baker Mayfield is speaking, and he comes out, and he was all behind Black Lives Matter. He's going to be with his teammates, and you know, he was about the movement, and so he said that he was going to definitely and absolutely kneel during the national anthem when the season started, and he didn't really care what people thought. That was in June. They asked him in August, did he have the same position that he held in June? And he said, I'm absolutely kneeling. But yesterday, he gave a text message. In that message, he said, after many texts and emails and conversations, he has now decided that he's going to stand for the anthem. Now, he was standing, he was going to kneel because of social injustice in America. There's still social injustice in America. He was going to kneel because Breonna Taylor had yet to be, the officers had yet to be arrested. They've yet to be arrested. He was going to kneel because of all of the protests and the marching that's going on in America, that's still going on in America. And yet, he's now going to stand, but I thought absolutely meant certain. So that is what character looks like. But what it says is, we talked about it this morning, it's what steadfastness doesn't look like. See, nobody beat him up, nobody took him to jail, nobody threatened him, but he said through emails, texts, and conversations, his kneeling would have been unpopular, and so he chose not to do it. That is not true substance, but it is because it lets you know that that's someone you may not be able to rely on. Right? Now, if Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever, then he's who you can rely on. Never changing. It's going to always be that way. We have friends. They have 4 boys. So you can understand how rambunctious that can be. During Christmas, when you go to their houses, Alex and Ron, the boys will be upstairs, and they make all this noise. It's just all this noise. Trying to watch TV, you can't do it. So their mother, who's about 5'2", goes to the stairs, and she just says, hey, stop making all that noise. To which they continue to make a lot of noise. They don't stop making noise. They don't stop running around. It's as if she never said, hey, stop making all that noise. About 10 minutes later, their father, who's about 6'1" or so, gets up off this chair, which you must really not like to do. Gets up off his chair. He comes to the same place she was and says, hey, do I need to come up there? And in unison, like a choir, they all said, no. And they made no more noise. Why? Because character speaks. We know mama's not gonna come up here, right? She ain't trying to come upstairs, but he's come up here before. And when he came up here, it didn't go well for us. It was consistent, right? And so all he had to say was, do you want me to come up there? That said a lot to me. It must be very violent when he gets up there, right? And so they stopped. And so it's something that his habit was when he came upstairs, he dealt with you, right? And so that's how we have to see the things we want. Now, this sermon isn't about the preemptive, the superiority of Christ, or any of that. It's not about Revelations 1:8 or Malachi 3:6. Revelations 1:8 tells us that he's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, and he's what is and what is to come. He's the Almighty. The sermon is not about that. It's not about what Malachi tells us in 3:6, that he's the Lord and that he's not going to change. But it's more about that he's the Lord and he's not changing. We talk about Moses a lot in here, and there was never another man like Moses. But when he told Moses to speak to the rock, and Moses didn't speak to the rock, Moses hit the rock instead, he kept Moses out of the promised land. And it tells you there was no greater God than Moses. And yet, God said, you're not getting in, and Moses is still not. We have to have belief in what we know, and sometimes even the harshness lets us know who we're dealing with and what we're dealing with. It's about the character of what's built upon us. Now, there are that builds our character. Some call them virtues. Calls us morality. Calls us what we're morally built upon. What are our ethics? And a lot of you say, well, if I'm moral, I must be good. But you must remember, moral also can mean immoral by your ethics that you follow. Just because you have morals, what morals do you have? Do you believe in lying instead of telling the truth? Those are your morals. Society like this, we call it immoral, but you might think that that's okay. And then you have resume virtues versus eulogy virtue. Resume virtues are what kind of car do you drive? Some people might call those dating virtues. No, but resume virtues, right? What kind of car you drive, what kind of job you have, right? What kind of income are you making, right? She's cute. These are resume virtues. These are things that just you see them, but you don't see them. Right? You know he or she is successful by how they dress, how they drive, what their job is, but you don't know them. So all you know is their character from the shell of what you see. Eulogy virtues are the things that people talk about at your funeral. Now, you've been to funerals, and I went to a funeral once. I'll tell you who it was. I was at this funeral in Texas, and they were describing this guy. And I sat there, and I thought someone else had died because it couldn't be him, right? He was this, and he was that. I was like, no, he was none of that. But it sounded good at the funeral. I just can't say anything bad about a person at the funeral. But those are the eulogy things that you are strong and that you are forthright and that you were honest and that you were good to your neighbor and that you were someone who had goodness versus greatness. Goodness versus greatness. Like, there's a holiday, I'll give you an example. There's a holiday, we have a holiday for Martin Luther King, and he was a black man, and then there's Reginald Lewis, and we don't celebrate holiday for him. Most people don't even know who he is. He was technically the first black billionaire. But we don't celebrate him because he had resume virtue. He had tremendous success. He was the first black to ever buy $1 billion business and to run that $1 billion business, technically a billionaire himself. But we don't even talk about him. He gave the largest endowment at one time to Harvard Law School, which is $3 million. And yet there's no holiday for him. Because for all of his success, we'd still be in the back of the bus. For all of his success, we'd be still separate but equal. For all of his success, we couldn't be as far along as we are because Martin Luther King died with so little dollars, but so great character virtue, right? And so that's the difference of what this talks about. And so you want to be the person that people talk about with character. So I thought about, if I was going to talk about character today, I was going to talk about a Christ, a God who was the same today, yesterday, tomorrow, forever, always, eternity. I had to find somebody in the Bible that was similar. But I just want to find somebody that talk about that great character. I wanted to find someone who was also, I could show against it. Someone who changes throughout the situation. We talked about it from this pulpit before, but you have a lot of people that will tell you, I got you. I got you, Brother McQueen, right up until I got to have it, right? Right up until you need me, I got you, right? I'm going to be there for you, Ted, until Ted needs me to be there. We know a lot of people that had our back until our back needed to be had. And so we need to know this character before we get to him. You know, we date people. I talk a lot about relationships, talk a lot about work, but I talk about relationships because that's what we do. Spend most of our time at work, a lot of time with people. And we get hurt by a lot of people because we blind ourselves to their true character because of their outside character. We like all this, Inside might be jacked up, but all this. And we think that somehow all this can permeate itself inside and make all that inside better, but sometimes that's never going to happen. People are who they are, and they show you who they are. And so you should sometimes take that when they show you. They meant that. I had a friend, he was dating a girl, and he talked to her father, and he was trying to talk to her about what was wrong with their relationship. And her own father said, "You're too good for my daughter." And he came back to me and said, "What do you think we should do?" I said, her own dad said you should break up with her. Now, I don't know what else to tell you. Because he knew her, right? He would know her, his daughter. Well, so this morning I thought, well, who would I talk about that was one way and then changed later, but somebody who stayed consistent through the entire time that we knew him. They stay consistent, but the surroundings around her change, but she stays consistent. And so I looked, and as we all know, anything we want is in the Bible, right? It can all be found in the Bible. And so if you turn your Bible to Ruth, we're going to talk about Ruth, and we're going to talk about Naomi. Because one of them changes, one of them. And we're going to start in Ruth in chapter 1. So in Ruth, we know that Naomi is the mother. And Naomi is the mother, and that Ruth is her daughter-in-law. And that Ruth, Naomi's husband has died. She had 2 sons. They married 2 Moabite women, and both of her sons have died. And so she's now at a point where it's just her and her daughters-in-law. And she wants to go back home to Bethlehem. And so where we are in this story in the beginning is it's just a narration. It's just giving you ideas about who these people are. And so in verse number 6 of chapter 1, it says, "Then she arose with her daughters-in-law," this is Naomi, "that she might return from the country of Moab. For she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them bread. Therefore she went out from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her daughters-in-law," now, Naomi, we're going to try to do it, just really talk to them. She's basically saying, go return to each of your mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as you dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you, may you find rest, each in the house of your husband. That means husband, whatever. So she says, she's basically saying, I'm out, about to return home.